The Arena of Doom. The alien crowd roared, shaking the massive stone walls of the Gladiator arena. Thousands of eyes locked onto the blood-stained sand below, where a battle unlike any other was about to take place. On one side stood Dravor, an 8-foot-tall alien warrior, his body covered in thick, black armor. His massive hands gripped a deadly battle axe, its blade still dripping with the blood of his last opponent. His species, the Gorlak, were known as the strongest warriors in the galaxy, unbeatable in combat, ruthless and brutal. On the other side stood a human, Sergeant Cole Parker. He was shorter, weaker, and alone. His military armor was damaged, his left arm bleeding from a deep cut. The last human soldier captured in a long-forgotten war, now nothing more than entertainment for the bloodthirsty crowd. A loud horn echoed through the arena, signaling the start of the fight. The alien announcer's voice boomed. The human will face Dravor, the undefeated champion. Let this be his final battle. The crowd cheered wildly. To them, this was not a fight. This was an execution. Dravor laughed, stepping forward. His voice was deep and full of amusement. "I was hoping for a real fight," he mocked. "But they gave me you." Cole didn't respond. He staggered slightly, gripping his combat knife tightly. His breathing was heavy, his body exhausted. The alien laughed again. "You should kneel, human. Beg for mercy. Maybe I will make it quick." Cole smirked. "Mercy." His voice was rough, but steady. "You don't know what humans are capable of." Dravor grinned, raising his axe. "Let's see what you're made of then." The battle begins. Dravor charged forward, his massive footfalls shaking the ground. He swung his axe in a blur of steel, so fast that no normal human could dodge. But Cole wasn't normal. At the last second, he dropped low, rolling beneath the deadly swing. The axe slammed into the ground, sending dust and debris flying. The crowd gasped. No human had ever dodged Dravor's first strike. Cole didn't waste time. He slashed upward with his knife, aiming for a weak spot in Dravor's armor. But the alien was fast. He twisted his body, barely avoiding the strike. "Clever," Dravor admitted, "but you're still too weak." He kicked out with immense force, his heavy boot crashing into Cole's chest. Crack! Cole flew backward, landing hard on the sand. His ribs screamed in pain, but he refused to stay down. He pushed himself up, coughing blood, but still standing. Dravor frowned. Most would have stayed down after that. The crowd wanted violence, blood, and a quick kill. But Cole was ruining the show. The alien champion gripped his axe tighter. He would have to end this now. The human's plea. Dravor stalked forward, raising his axe for the killing blow. The crowd screamed for blood. Cole looked up, eyes sharp despite the pain. Then he did something no one expected. He dropped his knife. The arena fell into silence. Dravor hesitated. Was this human surrendering? Giving up? "One request," Cole said, his voice calm despite his wounds. Dravor narrowed his eyes. "You wish to beg for your life?" Cole shook his head. "No. I wish to tell you something, before you kill me." The alien gladiator was amused. "Go on, human. Speak your last words." Cole leaned in slightly, his voice low, serious, and unshaken. He whispered something, and for the first time in his entire life, Dravor's expression changed. His smile vanished. His grip on his axe loosened. His eyes widened in shock. The crowd saw it. The great warrior, the unbeatable gladiator, looked afraid. The human's secret weapon. The crowd was silent. It was an eerie thing. The same audience that had been screaming for blood only moments ago now sat in stunned silence, watching Dravor hesitate. The massive 8-foot alien warrior, the undefeated gladiator, had taken a step back. His enormous axe, which had sent countless challengers to their deaths, remained still in his hands. And the reason? A single sentence, a whisper from a dying human. Cole Parker stood in front of him, bruised, bleeding, and outmatched. But he didn't look afraid. If anything, he looked dangerous. The shift in power. Dravor's yellow eyes narrowed, his reptilian pupils fixated on Cole. "What did you just say?" His voice, once full of arrogance, now carried a hint of unease. Cole tilted his head slightly, wiping blood from his cracked lips. "You heard me." The alien's grip on his axe tightened, then loosened. He was shaken. He didn't know why, but something about those words rattled him. He had fought hundreds of battles, slain creatures far stronger than this weak human. And yet, something had changed. The arena master, a large, slug-like alien sitting on a floating throne, slammed his fist down on his armrest. "Finish it, Dravor," his translator growled. "Kill the human." The crowd, snapping out of their confusion, began to chant again. "Kill him! Kill him! Kill him!" Dravor's chest rose and fell heavily. He was a warrior, a champion. He could not hesitate. With a roar, he charged again, swinging his axe with the force to split a spaceship hull in half. Cole didn't dodge. Instead, he did something that made every alien in the crowd gasp. He stepped forward. The battle turns. Dravor's swing should have been fatal. The axe was coming down fast, a guaranteed kill. But the moment it should have connected, Cole was gone. Dravor's axe slammed into the sand, sending dust into the air. The force of the impact shook the arena, causing smaller aliens in the front rows to flinch. But the human was no longer where he had been standing. Dravor barely had time to react before. Slash! Pain shot through his left arm. A deep gash tore through the exposed joint between his armor plating. The human had cut him. Dravor snarled, swinging wildly, but Cole was already moving, ducking under the attack like a ghost. The crowd gasped again. This wasn't just luck. The human wasn't just surviving. He was winning. The human's plan. Dravor felt his breathing become heavy. His muscles burned. That's when he realized something was wrong. Cole wasn't fighting him head-on. He wasn't trying to overpower him. He was tiring him out. Dravor's race, the Gorlak, were built for brutal, high-energy combat, short bursts of overwhelming power. Their massive bodies required more oxygen than smaller creatures. Cole had figured it out. The moment the fight began, the human knew he couldn't win with strength alone. So instead, he let Dravor burn himself out. And now, it was working. The human wasn't just fighting. He was playing Dravor like a game. The fear of losing. Dravor took another swing, slower this time. Cole ducked, easily. Then he struck back. Hard. A second cut appeared on Dravor's side. Not deep, but enough to make him stagger. The crowd fell silent again. They had never seen their champion in this state. Dravor growled, shaking his head. Impossible. This isn't possible. But it was happening. And for the first time in his life, Dravor realized he might lose. The final stand. Cole stepped back, watching his opponent carefully. He could see it, the exhaustion, the hesitation. Dravor had never been forced into a long fight before. He was used to quick, violent victories. But humans were built for endurance. Cole smirked. You feel it now, don't you? Dravor roared in frustration, lunging at Cole with all his remaining strength. He swung recklessly, putting everything into a final attack. Cole didn't move. He waited. The moment the axe was inches from his body, he sidestepped. Fast. Too fast. Dravor's own momentum betrayed him. His huge body went off balance, his foot slipping in the sand. His grip weakened. His axe fell from his hands. And that was when Cole struck. With a powerful kick to the back of Dravor's knee, the alien collapsed onto the ground. The arena exploded in chaos. The human had brought the champion to his knees. The unstoppable human mind. The arena was silent. Thousands of alien spectators, who had roared with excitement moments ago, now sat frozen, unable to process what they had just witnessed. Dravor was on his knees. The great Korlak champion, undefeated in over 100 battles, had been brought down by a human. A species they considered weak, fragile, inferior. And yet, here was Sergeant Cole Parker, bleeding, battered, but still standing, staring down at the once mighty alien warrior. The energy of the arena shifted. The audience had come to watch a slaughter. Instead, they had witnessed something impossible. The reality sets in. Dravor panted heavily, his massive chest rising and falling. His limbs trembled from exhaustion. His strength, his greatest weapon, had failed him. He clenched his jaw. How? How had this small, wounded human done what no alien had ever done before? Cole, standing over him, wiped blood from his chin. "Now do you get it?" he asked. Dravor looked up, his reptilian eyes filled with confusion. The words the human had whispered earlier, the words that had shaken him, echoed in his mind. This fight was over before it even started. The meaning was clear now. The human had planned this from the beginning. He never fought to overpower. He fought to outlast. The fear of defeat. Dravor had never lost, never even come close. Korlak warriors were taught from birth that their kind was the strongest in the galaxy. They were raised to believe that no other species could challenge them in physical combat. But now, kneeling in the dirt, his strength gone, Dravor felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Not the fear of death. No, he had always accepted that warriors could die. This was something worse. The fear of being wrong. The fear that everything he had been taught was a lie. The human mindset. Cole took a deep breath, keeping his knife steady in his grip. He could feel the shift in the air. The crowd didn't know how to react. The arena master was furious, his slug-like body squirming in his floating throne. This fight was supposed to be a show of Korlak superiority. Instead, it had turned into something far greater. Cole looked at Dravor. "You never really had a chance," he said, voice calm. Dravor growled. "You're weaker than me." Cole smirked. "Physically, yeah, but strength doesn't win wars. That's why humans always survive." Dravor frowned. "You tricked me." Cole shrugged. "I won." The Korlak gritted his teeth. His body ached, his muscles burning from exhaustion. He thought about the fight. How Cole dodged instead of blocking. How he forced Dravor to waste his energy. How he never fought head-on. It wasn't just skill. It was a mindset. Humans didn't just fight with their bodies. They fought with their minds. The crowd reacts. Murmurs began to spread through the audience. Some whispered in shock. Others hissed in disbelief. An alien near the front, a four-armed Krithian, clicked its mandibles together. How did the human do this? Another, a hulking Drexian warrior, shook his head. I have never seen a Korlak on his knees before. For the first time in history, the idea of human superiority had entered the minds of other species. And that was dangerous. Dravor's choice. The arena master was growing impatient. His slug-like body twitched, his translators buzzing with annoyance. He grabbed his staff and slammed it against the armrest of his throne. Dravor, stop playing games. Kill the human. The words echoed through the arena. Dravor's eyes flicked toward the arena master, then back at Cole. His hands tightened into fists. Every instinct in his body told him to finish the fight, to reclaim his honor. But then, he thought about what would happen if he did. If he stood up and killed this human, the crowd would cheer. The Korlak's dominance would be reaffirmed, and Dravor would go back to being what he was before, a mindless weapon. But if he didn't, if he made a different choice, the Gladiator breaks the system. Dravor lowered his head. The arena master's voice boomed again. Kill him. Dravor, that is an order." Dravor took a slow, deep breath. Then, to the shock of every single person in the arena, he dropped his weapon. The battle axe clattered against the ground. The crowd gasped in disbelief. A Gorlak warrior had yielded. The gladiator breaks. The arena erupted into chaos. Dravor's battle axe lay abandoned in the blood-stained sand, its once mighty wielder kneeling before the human he had been ordered to kill. The shockwave of his surrender rippled through the thousands of alien spectators, turning cheers into stunned silence, then into rage. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. The Gorlak were unbreakable warriors. They didn't surrender. They didn't submit. And yet, Dravor had yielded to a human. The arena master's grotesque, slug-like form quivered with fury atop his floating throne. His voice, amplified by his translator, roared across the Colosseum. "Unacceptable. This is an insult to the Gorlak. Kill them both." Suddenly, the arena doors burst open. Hundreds of guards poured into the pit, weapons raised. The battle was over. But the war had just begun. The turning point. Cole Parker exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. His ribs ached from the brutal beating he had taken earlier, but now wasn't the time to think about pain. He and Dravor were outnumbered and outgunned. The arena guards were elite warriors, equipped with energy weapons and shock batons. Unlike the gladiator battles, this would be a real fight. Dravor, still kneeling, cracked his knuckles and looked up at Cole. "You fight dirty, human. Got any tricks left?" Cole smirked. "Always." Dravor snorted, then rose to his full height. His massive frame still towered over Cole, but now he stood beside him, not as an opponent, but as an ally. The guards charge. The arena erupts. The first wave of guards rushed in, energy batons crackling. They expected an easy kill, a wounded human, and a disgraced gladiator. They were wrong. Cole moved first. Despite his injuries, his military training kicked in. His body reacted on instinct. Dodge, counter, attack. A baton came swinging toward his head. He sidestepped, grabbed the attacker's wrist, and drove his knee into the guard's gut. The alien choked, staggering backward, just as Cole twisted his arm and stole his weapon. Crack. Cole spun and slammed the stolen baton into another guard's head. The alien dropped instantly. Dravor, meanwhile, fought like a war machine. No longer held back by the rules of the arena, he grabbed one of the guards by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Crunch. With a single devastating punch, Dravor sent the guard flying into two others, knocking them over like bowling pins. More came. Cole and Dravor fought back to back, moving in sync. A guard lunged at Dravor with a plasma spear, only to get grabbed mid-air and hurled across the arena. Cole ducked under a swing, spun, and cracked another baton across a guard's jaw. The crowd went insane. They had come expecting a massacre. Instead, they were watching two warriors fight side by side, against the very system that enslaved them. The psychological shift. Aliens in the audience whispered among themselves. A Crithian noble clicked his mandibles. A Gorlak fighting alongside a human. Impossible. A Drexian warlord watched with narrowed eyes. Perhaps the stories about humans are true. They fight like demons. Others in the crowd weren't just watching anymore. They were thinking. The idea that a human could stand equal to a Gorlak was spreading like wildfire. And that was far more dangerous than any weapon. The arena master saw it happening. He could feel his control slipping. He slammed his fist against his throne. "Kill them. All of them." The execution order. Above the arena, the execution platforms activated. Massive turrets emerged from the walls, their barrels glowing with deadly plasma energy. Cole heard the hum of the charging cannons and cursed under his breath. They weren't meant to win this fight. Even if they killed every guard in the pit, those turrets would vaporize them. Dravor looked up. then back at Cole. Any more tricks, human? Cole's mind raced. He had fought in impossible battles before. He had been outnumbered, outgunned, and left for dead. But this was different. The entire system was against them. Then, an idea hit him. A crazy idea. Cole glanced at the crowd. At the aliens who were watching. Some with fear, some with admiration. And he made his move. The speech that changed everything. Cole threw down his stolen baton. He raised his fists, bloody and bruised, toward the crowd. And then he shouted, "Look at your champion." The entire arena froze. Cole pointed at Dravor. A Gorlak, the strongest warrior in this pit. And what did he do? The audience leaned in. Cole's voice boomed. He made a choice. Murmurs spread. Cole stepped forward. He was supposed to kill me. He could have. But he didn't. He chose not to. The murmurs turned into shocked gasps. Cole's eyes scanned the crowd. How many of you have fought in this arena? How many of you were thrown into this pit, told to fight for a system that doesn't care if you live or die? Silence. Then, an alien gladiator in the stands stood up. Then another. Then another. Cole saw it happening. The rebellion was beginning. The humans' ultimate gambit. The arena was no longer a battleground. It was a war zone. Plasma fire rained down from the execution turrets above, scorching the sand where Sergeant Cole Parker and Dravor stood. The once cheering crowd was now screaming in panic, pushing and shoving to escape as the stadium descended into pure chaos. The arena guards who had been fighting the duo turned their attention upward, realizing that the turrets weren't just targeting the fighters. They were targeting everyone. Cole grabbed Dravor's massive arm and yanked him sideways as another plasma bolt exploded nearby, sending a shockwave through the sand. "We need cover," Cole yelled over the roar of the chaos. Dravor snarled. "Cover from what? They're turning the whole arena into a graveyard." Cole scanned the battlefield. The crowd was panicking. The guards were disorganized. And then he saw it. A weapons cache near the far end of the pit, probably used to arm the gladiators before battles. A way out. The system collapses. Above, the arena master screamed orders. His voice was no longer composed. It was full of panic. "Shoot them. Shoot them all. Kill the human." His control over the crowd was shattering. Alien spectators were no longer watching. They were running. Some of them had fought in this arena before, and for the first time, they questioned why. In the chaos, several other gladiators, from different species, different worlds, rushed into the pit. Some joined the guards. Others joined the rebellion. A 3-armed Mokari brute swung a stolen hammer into a guard's skull. A red-scaled Torvath warrior tackled a turret gunner off his platform. The system had held for years, and in a single night, it was falling apart. Breaking through the chaos, Cole moved fast, leading Dravor through the battle. The moment they reached the weapons cache, he grabbed the nearest firearm, a sleek energy rifle. He tossed another to Dravor, who caught it, inspecting it briefly. "Do you even know how to use that?" Cole asked. Dravor smirked. "Pull the trigger and kill things, right?" Close enough. They opened fire. Plasma bolts ripped through enemy guards as the duo fought their way toward the exit. Behind them, other freed gladiators were breaking out of their holding cells, flooding the pit with more rebels. A large explosion ripped through the stands as one of the turrets misfired, hitting the arena walls. The structure began to crumble. The arena master's last move. From his throne above, the arena master's slime-covered body trembled with rage. This wasn't supposed to happen. A human, a single human, had started all of this. He could not allow this to be the legacy of the Colosseum. He activated his personal security droids. 12 towering mechanical enforcers, each one twice the size of a Gorlak, armed with heavy plasma cannons, descended into the arena. The announcer's voice crackled through the loudspeakers. Gladiators. Your true enemy stands before you. The crowd turned to look. The droids did not target Cole. They targeted the rebels. The arena master wanted to wipe them all out in one sweep. A collective realization dawned over the remaining gladiators. This wasn't about the human anymore. The system didn't care who they were. It only cared about control. One by one, the fighters stopped looking at Cole as the enemy. One by one, they turned toward the droids. And they attacked. The battle turns again. Cole and Dravor fought side by side, taking down the heavily armed enforcers one by one. A Torgoth warrior leaped onto a droid's back, tearing off a power core. A Crithian blade master sliced through another's joints, bringing it crashing to the ground. Cole emptied his rifle's energy cell, then stole another weapon from a fallen guard, never stopping. Dravor tore a droid in half with his bare hands, roaring in fury. The rebels were winning. But the arena was collapsing. The final escape. Cole saw the massive exit gates ahead, the ones used to transport in new prisoners. They were reinforced, but with the right amount of force. He turned to Dravor. We need to blow that gate open. Dravor smirked. You have a bomb in your pocket, human. Cole pointed at something nearby. A weapons transport hover truck, overloaded with explosives. Dravor's smirk grew wider. Now that is a plan. The two warriors fought their way to the truck, Cole climbing into the driver's seat. You ever driven one of these? Dravor asked, jumping onto the back. Cole grinned. Nope. He punched the throttle. The truck lurched forward, speeding straight for the gate. Behind them, the last remaining droids were being overrun. The rebellion was winning, but they still needed a way out. Boom. A plasma blast struck the side of the truck, sending it skidding across the sand. Cole fought to keep control, while Dravor ripped open a crate of explosives. You better time this right, human. Dravor shouted. I always do. Cole lied. The truck slammed into the gate at full speed. And at that moment, Dravor tossed the explosives. Boo-oh-oh-oh-om. The entire gate exploded outward, sending fire and debris into the night sky. For the first time in years, the gladiators had a way out. The leap to freedom. Smoke and fire filled the air. Cole coughed, climbing out of the wreckage. Behind him, Dravor emerged, battered but alive. And beyond them, hundreds of freed gladiators, warriors of all species, running toward freedom. Cole turned to Dravor, breathing heavily. Told you I'd get us out. Dravor chuckled. You humans are insane. Cole smirked. Yeah, and you're stuck with us now. Dravor glanced back at the burning arena. A system had fallen today, and it all started with a human who refused to kneel. The unthinkable alliance. The night sky blazed with fire as the gladiator arena crumbled behind them. Cole Parker barely had time to process the destruction. The smoke, the explosions, the chaos. His body ached from the countless blows he had taken, but he was still standing. And he wasn't alone. Hundreds of freed gladiators now ran beside him, warriors from every corner of the galaxy, all escaping the same brutal system that had enslaved them. And at his side, Dravor, the once unbeatable Gorlak champion, now running as his ally. The aftermath of a revolution. Cole and the others sprinted through the canyon leading away from the arena. The ground still shook from the distant explosions, casting eerie shadows across the jagged rock walls. They had done the impossible. The system had fallen, but they weren't safe yet. Dravor grunted as he slowed his pace. We have a problem. Human. Cole glanced at him. Just one. Dravor ignored the joke, pointing up at the sky. Cole followed his gaze, and his stomach dropped. Above them, a fleet of black warships hovered in the sky, blocking their escape. The Gorlak Dominion had arrived. The fleet in the sky, the arena master had sent a distress signal, and the Gorlak High Command had answered. The lead warship loomed above them, its hull covered in scarlet insignias, markings of the High Warlord. Massive spotlights flickered on, bathing the fleeing gladiators in harsh white light. Then a voice boomed from above, deep, cold, and merciless. "Surrender. You have nowhere to run." The gladiators skidded to a halt. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Most were still recovering from the arena battle. Many had no weapons, no armor. Cole felt the weight of it all. They had fought so hard, and now this. But then, Dravor stepped forward, and he did something no one expected. Dravor's stand. Dravor raised his arms, standing tall before the warships. His deep voice echoed through the canyon. "I am Dravor, champion of the Gorlak. I am the one you seek." Murmurs spread among the gladiators. Cole's brow furrowed. "What the hell are you doing?" Dravor didn't look at him. "Trust me." Cole muttered a curse. He hated those words. Above them, the fleet remained still for a long, tense moment. Then, a hatch opened from the lead warship. A single figure descended, a towering Gorlak in crimson battle armor, his face hidden behind a jagged metal mask. The High Warlord himself. The unthinkable offer. The warlord landed with a heavy thud, the impact of his boots cracking the ground. His reptilian eyes gleamed as he scanned the gathered warriors. Then he spoke. "Dravor, you disappoint me." The Gorlak champion stood firm. "The system is broken. The arena is no more. You will not rebuild it." The warlord chuckled, a deep, dangerous sound. "You think a single human and a handful of slaves have changed anything?" His gaze flicked to Cole. "Interesting, though. A human did this." Cole clenched his fists. "Yeah, and I'm still here." The warlord stepped closer. "You are an anomaly, human, but an anomaly can be erased." Dravor took a step forward. "No." The warlord's eyes flashed. "No." Dravor clenched his fists. "This is not just a human rebellion. This is a war against a lie." The warlord tilted his head. "Then let me make you an offer." Dravor and Cole exchanged a glance. The warlord's voice turned colder. "Come with me, Dravor. Prove your loyalty. Kill the human." Silence. The gathered gladiators held their breath. Dravor's jaw tightened. Cole exhaled slowly. He had known this moment was coming. The real question was, what would Dravor do? The decision. For a long moment, Dravor said nothing. Then he did something that stunned everyone. He dropped to one knee. The warlord smirked. "Good. You understand where your loyalty belongs." But then, Dravor spoke. "I do." His voice was calm, steady, dangerous, and before the warlord could react, Dravor struck. The betrayal. In a single fluid motion, Dravor grabbed the warlord by the throat and slammed him into the ground. The canyon shook from the force. The gladiators gasped. The warlord's guards reached for their weapons. But Dravor's voice boomed. "Enough." His grip tightened around the warlord's throat. "The Gorlak are warriors, not slavers. We do not break our enemies. We fight them with honor. This system has twisted our strength into cruelty." The guards hesitated. Dravor's next words changed everything. "I am the champion of the Gorlak, and I reject you." The rise of a new order. The warlord struggled, but Dravor didn't kill him. Instead, he stood and faced the guards. "This system is dead. The arena is gone. But the Gorlak will rise again, stronger, without chains, without lies." Silence. Then, one of the guards dropped his weapon. Another followed. The shift was happening. One by one, the soldiers turned away from the warlord. They weren't loyal to the system. They were loyal to Dravor. And Dravor had chosen a new path, the legend of the human warrior. The night sky was still burning. The Gladiator arena had fallen, but the battle was far from over. Cole Parker stood beside Dravor, his once rival, now the most dangerous Gorlak in the galaxy. Around them, hundreds of freed warriors waited in silence. Above, the fleet of Gorlak warships hung motionless, caught in the aftermath of a shattered empire. The High Warlord, once a figure of absolute power, now lay broken in the dust, defeated not by weapons, but by a single choice. The choice to defy the system. Dravor had made that choice. Now, the galaxy was watching. The moment that would shake the future. Cole glanced at Dravor, watching the massive warrior step forward. His deep voice echoed through the canyon. The Gorlak have ruled through fear. He looked up at the hovering warships. But today, we see the truth. Our strength was never in chains. It was never in slaughter. The Gorlak soldiers on the warships were listening. Dravor continued. We were warriors once, but this. He motioned to the broken arena behind him. This is not war. This is not honor. This is not who we are. A murmur rippled through the gladiators and even among the enemy soldiers. Then Dravor pointed to Cole. A single human did what no army could. He stood when no one else would. He fought when others gave up, and he did it not with strength, but with will. The crowd stirred. Dravor's voice grew louder. You call him weak, but he is still standing. Cole smirked. Dan right. The silence that followed was thick with tension. And then something unexpected happened. The Gorlak soldiers turned. One of the Gorlak officers on the lead warship hesitated. Then, slowly, he removed his helmet, and he did something no one expected. He dropped his weapon. Then another soldier followed. Then another. Across the fleet, hundreds of Gorlak warriors, many of whom had once fought for the system, began lowering their arms. The shift was happening. The Gorlak dominion was fracturing. The rebellion wasn't just in the arena anymore. It was everywhere. The final stand of the warlord. But the warlord wasn't finished. Coughing, he pushed himself up from the dirt, his golden eyes burning with fury. You are all fools. His voice was a growl, filled with rage and desperation. You think one battle changes anything. You think one human makes a difference. Dravor's expression was unreadable. The warlord spat blood. Do you think the Dominion will just fall? He turned his gaze to Cole. You don't know what you've done, human. Cole tilted his head. Pretty sure I do. The warlord sneered. You haven't won. You've only made yourself a target. Then he pulled something from his belt. A small blinking device. A detonator. Cole's instincts kicked in. Oh, hell no. Boom. A massive explosion erupted from the center of the canyon, throwing fire and debris into the air. The ground trembled. The Gorlak warships shook. And then, the ground began to collapse. The fall into darkness. Cole barely had time to react before the canyon split open beneath them. Dravor grabbed Cole by the arm, just as the ground gave way, sending dozens of warriors plummeting into the abyss. Rocks tumbled. Smoke filled the air. Cole felt his grip slipping. Then, blackness, a distant awakening. He woke to the sound of rushing water. His head pounded. His ribs screamed in pain. Slowly, he opened his eyes. He was alive, but barely. The explosion had collapsed part of the canyon, sending Cole and several others into a deep underground cavern. A faint blue glow illuminated the space around him. He tried to move, but his body refused. Too much damage. Too much exhaustion. Then, footsteps. Heavy. Familiar. Dravor. The massive Gorlak emerged from the darkness, covered in dust and blood, but still standing. He dropped beside Cole, panting. You humans are impossible to kill. Cole managed a weak grin. Takes one to know one. The future of the rebellion. Cole forced himself to sit up. Around them, other survivors were waking. Some were injured. Some were still unconscious. But they were alive. Dravor looked up at the cavern ceiling. We are not the only ones who fell. Many of the warlord's forces were caught in the collapse. Cole exhaled. So that means. Dravor nodded. The battle above is over. But the war has just begun. A new beginning. Cole looked at the freed warriors around them. Former gladiators, former slaves, former enemies, all of them now bound by one thing. Survival. Revolution. Dravor grinned. We'll need a new army. Cole chuckled, shaking his head. Great. More work. Then he looked at the dark tunnels ahead, and he knew. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far bigger. Final words. As he stood, feeling the weight of everything they had been through, Cole turned to Dravor. You ever heard of the human guerrilla warfare doctrine? Dravor raised an eyebrow. What is it? Cole smirked. Step 1. Survive. Step 2. Get creative. Step 3. Make the enemy regret everything. Dravor chuckled. Then we have a war to plan. Human. Cole nodded. And together, they walked into the darkness, ready to change the galaxy forever.